Hello. I hope you're all well. Gesund, stark und fröhlich. Begashmis und beruchnis. Healthy, strong, and happy, physically and spiritually. Hashem should help that all those that need a refuah shlema should have one now, and that the Maggot should stop immediately. Today is Chof Ches Nissan, a day 29 years ago. The Rebbe spoke a very powerful talk about exile and Moshiach, as we'll soon note. And it's appropriate because we've lived through, and we're still in the middle of it, very, very difficult times. There's been the passing of a mother and a son, Hashem Yirachem, the passing of a father and a son, the passing in one family of two grandmothers, the passing in another family of two grandfathers, and the passing, Hashem Yirachem, of a child before the parents. So we're in the middle of a time where we've seen and we feel the pain of these tragedies, and our brothers and sisters are fighting for their lives. So the only right thing for a Yid is to feel with others their pain and to take it seriously and take it to heart. VeHachi Yidden. We, who are witnesses to all of these events, have to take the message, and it should affect us in a deep way. 29 years ago, the Rebbe spoke about the fact that we're still in exile. And he cried out to his followers, to his disciples, to the Chassidim, that I've done whatever I can, and now I'm giving it over to you. Do everything you can to bring Moshiach. When the Rebbe spoke this sikha, it was a shock. The Rebbe is saying he did everything he can, and Moshiach still didn't come, and now he's giving it over to us. The leader is giving it over to the followers. What's going on over here? The Rebbe had never spoken such words. So before we address the talk, and maybe something we could take from it, first we'll start as usual with a prayer from a pasuk of the Rebbe's new kapitel, kapitel Chof Ches, and the pasuk is Kuf Mem Hey. Karathi b'cholev, Anani Hashem, Chakich, Etzra. I call out with all my heart, answer me, O Hashem, so that I will be able to keep your statutes. The Rebbe, when he said that sikh, he said, even though you, in other words us, are crying out, Ad Mosai, how long will the exile last? But you're not saying it from yourselves. It's not coming from you. It's because someone is telling you to say that. Someone's talking so much about the desire that we should have for Moshiach. Therefore, you're crying out Ad Mosai. In other words, the Rebbe was saying, you're saying Ad Mosai, but it's not really coming from you. It's because I'm supervising and influencing you. Therefore, you're crying out Ad Mosai. Here comes this pasuk. And it says, and the Rebbe said, if you'll cry Ad Mosai be'emes, if you'd really cry out, how long will this exile last? Then Mashiach will come. What does this pasuk say? Karathi b'cholev. I call out with all my heart. That means we're crying out truthfully. And why Hashem should answer us? Chakich Etzra, so that I will be able to keep your statutes. And this exactly tells us what Moshiach is about. How is it going to become ours? In other words, how are we going to take ownership to feel intensely and passionately the desire for Moshiach? First, you have to know what is Moshiach. And the truth is, to know what is Moshiach, you have to know what is Judaism. As a matter of fact, it's one of the 13 principles of faith that Maimonides, the Rambam, enumerates, and that is Ani mamin be'emuna shleima bevias HaMoshiach, that every Jew believes, and this is a principle of faith, in the coming of Moshiach, and even if it tarries, v'afal pi she'ismamea, im kol zeh achak eloi. Now, it's not the scope within this talk to teach all of Judaism, but the question is, why is it a principle of faith? You could have a person who could even be a great scholar or a rabbi, and he says, you know what, Torah mitzvah is our business. Mashiach's God's business. Anyone who speaks like that, he doesn't know what Torah mitzvah is. Obviously, what's the essence of Judaism? As we mentioned before, Yisrael, Eiraisa, V'kutzevricho, Kul Echad. God, Israel, and the Torah are all one. So in other words, what is Judaism? What is Torah mitzvahs? About us connecting with Hashem and becoming one in the most intimate way. So right now we're in Golus. The Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. Out of the 613 mitzvahs, how many can we actually perform? Maybe a third. But let me put it this way. Imagine you're married and you have a wonderful wife and it's a beautiful marriage, except, God forbid, imagine you're blind. You were born blind, let's say, and you're married to this person and you're intimate, you're connected, but you never saw them. Would you turn to Hashem and say, God, Hashem, please grant me sight? Because if I could just see my spouse, the marriage would be greater. Because it would be a whole different level, a whole deeper level, a better level, a higher level. This is what it means when a Jew is asking for Moshiach. He's asking to be fully connected with Hashem. And that's exactly what Torah mitzvah is all about. And that's exactly what our life is all about. In the famous discourse of Ata Tetzava Maimer that the Rebbe said, the Rebbe explained in a profound way why this generation in particular reflects the ultimate yearning for Moshiach. And the Rebbe explains because in previous generations there were external forces. If times were bad, the Rebbe spoke about the times of Mordechai and Haman. The Rebbe spoke of the times of communism. But he said now, we're living at a time, not these moments with this pandemic, but in general, the Pepsi generation. Jews have never had it as good. Physically, we're all free in free countries. And spiritually, we have yeshivas. There aren't decrees that are preventing us from learning Torah. And still, when a Jew cries out, Ad Mosai, he's pained by his condition in Golus. That means he's going for Hashem himself. And the famous analogy, which is brought down in a medrash, and there's an analogy from the Baal Shem Tov, where the Baal Shem Tov said, imagine you have a king, and he opens up his halls, like his chambers, and there's a chamber of silver and gold and diamonds. And he says, he opens up all these chambers, he says you could take what you want. So then you have different levels. You have one person, he gets so awed by the silver, he starts packing his pockets and he leaves with the silver. Then you have a smarter person who says, no, there must be more. He goes for the gold, but he loses himself when he sees the gold. Then there's another person, he sees the diamonds, he loses himself when he sees the diamonds. But there's a wise person. He says, I want the king. Ich will dich allein. I want you alone. And the point is, the one who says, I want the king, is the one who gets everything anyways, because the king owns everything. And this is what the Rebbe said, is when we're crying out, Ad Mosai, we're crying, Father, I want you. It's very nice that I own a house, and thank God, it's very nice that I have health, and it's very nice that I have parnasa, whatever it is. But in the end of the day, even when I have all these things, and it's great, I want you. Because that's more important than anything else. And this is what the Rebbe means when he says, we have to cry out be'emes. That means that the value system, my priorities in life change. There comes a moment in life where a person said, you know, until now, I was pursuing things that were really of insignificance and inconsequential, but then I realized my priorities have to change. What's really important to me? And this is what the Rebbe was demanding from us, that this has to be the main focus. And we have to reach the level that it's coming from us, from within. There's a famous story of a disciple of the Maggot who was called der Volpe. He was a holy tzaddik, but it seems like he had a fall, and he became an alcoholic. And he used to wander, go from inn to inn, and drink, and fall into a stupor. But wherever he went, even when he was a bit, intoxicated, he would chazer, he would review, he would say Torahs that he heard from the Maggot. So he could still see glimmers of his greatness. And other Chassidim, regular ones that weren't tzaddikim, weren't great scholars, would follow him around. They would hear he's in this inn or in that inn, and they would like to listen to the way he would chazer the mystical secrets of the Torah and Chassidus. But he also always walked around with a satchel, he had a leather pouch or something that he always had with him. And they were always wondering what's in there. And they thought that maybe in there were manuscripts of Torah from the Mezuzah Maggot. So one time he was buying in and he was saying Torah, and he excused himself. He said, 1 minute. So I'm not sure if he just went out for a couple of minutes or he fell asleep. So as soon as he left the room, the Chassidim that were there started rummaging in his pack. Anyways, he showed up and he caught them red-handed. He said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, we're sorry. We just wanted to see some ksavim, if you had any manuscripts from the Rebbe. And then he told them, you see, that's the problem. In my day, the Rebbe, his students, his Chassidim, and the Torahs that he said, were all one. We didn't need the manuscripts. We didn't have to learn it from a text. We didn't have to learn it from a paper. We lived it. We were one with our Rebbe's teachings and with our Rebbe. But by you, it's 3 distinct things. You have the Rebbe, the teacher, the rabbi. You have his disciples, and you have his teachings. And that's why you need to have a text. So this is a lesson. And this is what the Rebbe was telling us. It's time for you, Yankel, Berel, Shmerel, to take ownership. I want you to cry out, because you realize what's the most important thing? Your relationship with Hashem. So Hashem should help that we should, each and every one of us, improve from day to day. This is what a person has to tell himself, that he should every day improve in his yearning to cry out to the Eibishter, Karathi b'chol leiv, Aneni Hashem, Chakicha Atzra, so that we should fully be able to fulfill all the commandments and become one with Hashem in the deepest possible way. Broadcasting Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach from my home, your man in Melbourne.